What's going on, people? Myke C-Town here with one more list of best of things from 2016 for you guys. Before we get started, I just want to say, look, I'm not some big movie connoisseur. I'm not some deep movie critic. And I had just mentioned that I was thinking about making a top 10 list of the best movies that I'd seen this year. And quite a few people said that they would enjoy that, so I figured I'd go for it. And the reason I was so reluctant to do this is because I'm not one of those kind of people that rushes out to see every single new movie that comes out. In fact, it's the exact opposite. I never ever go to the movies unless it's something that I really want to see. I hate being in movie theaters. They're uncomfortable. I'm in a place with a bunch of people that I don't know and probably wouldn't even like, and I always gotta pee, and you know, my life is like one of those episodes of that show Urban Myth. I always think I'm gonna sit down on a hypodermic needle that's gonna poke me in the ass, and then once I spin around, there's going to be a sign on the seat in front of me that says, you know, welcome to the world of syphilis, or welcome to the world of herpalurp or some shit. So I just don't go to the movies. And, you know, I haven't even seen Moonlight or Arrival or Fences. So, you know, if I did, maybe my list would be different. Maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. But keep that in mind. But hey, by all means, put your best of list down there so I can check out some of the movies that you saw and enjoyed. But let's not shit on each other's lists, man. That's not what this is all about, bruh. Yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Number 10, Deadpool. I'm a sucker for comic book movies, and I thought this one was done really well. Deadpool wasn't even a comic that I read when I grew up, so I don't know much about the character going in, so if they had fucked up the story, I really wouldn't have known. But from the little I do know about Deadpool, they did a pretty good job with the character. He's funny, he's sarcastic, he's brutal. And I feel like this is one of those kind of comic book movies that are hopefully going to change the way comic book movies can be made from here out. They can be violent, they can be crass, and they can actually have a story that we give a shit about. So it kind of gives me high hopes for the next Wolverine movie. Hopefully it follows in these footsteps. Number 9, Captain America Civil War. Yeah, I'm a fucking nerd. 2 comic book movies in a row. Deal with it. Yeah. I thought this was great. It's a story that I'm familiar with because I read the comics, so I was excited to see them bring it to the big screen and hopefully not fuck it up. And of course, they had to change a few things, remove a few things, alter some circumstances. That's totally understandable, but I still think that they did a really good job with this movie. It was fun. It was action-packed. You know, don't need that much in the way of a super complex script. So the remaining elements were really executed very well. Nothing detailed to say about this. It's just a really fun movie. Number 8, Trash Fire. This was a movie about a guy who decides he wants to marry his girlfriend, but the girl refuses to marry him unless he goes and reconciles with his mom, who he hasn't spoke to in a long time, and his sister, who was a victim of this really bizarre accident. It's labeled a horror movie, but it's really not. It's more of a very dark black comedy, and I typically hate humorous movies. I don't know why, but this one does a really good job because the humor is by way of a really cynical protagonist. It's not forced, it's not cheesy, it's natural, and the pacing and the writing in this movie, in my opinion, was done really well. Number 7 was Under the Shadow. This is a movie that totally snuck up on me. It's a Middle Eastern horror movie set in Tehran during the Iran-Iraq War, sometime in the 80s, I believe, and it's about a woman who's living alone with her child in an apartment after her husband sent off to war. And what's really interesting about this movie is it's primarily an apartment horror movie, but instead of them simply being trapped in the apartment to be tormented there's the fact that there's a war going on outside that the house, while haunted, protects them from. It's a really cool horror movie with a really interesting twist and some great social criticisms without them being overly obvious or obnoxious. Number 6 was The Handmaiden. This is a Korean film made by Chan Wook Park, who did Old Boy and Lady Vengeance and all that. But this one's about a handmaiden who's involved in a plot to defraud the woman that she works for. But there are a lot of really great elements to this movie. The story sounds basic, but it's not. It's actually really complex. And I can't say anything else without giving something away, but it's also the acting, it's the scenery, it's the pacing, it's the cinematography that make this a really beautiful movie. Number 5 is Train to Busan. This is another Korean film. This time it's a straight up zombie movie, and I am a huge sucker for zombie movies, especially if they're done well. And this one is super tense, for the entire 2 hours. Lots of twists and turns with a really good subplot going. It's not scary, it's not extremely gory, it's just really action-packed, fast-paced, tense. If you like zombie movies, I feel like you'll like this one. You think that, how could they possibly do a zombie movie on a train and keep it interesting? But trust me, they really do. Number 4 is Green Room. It's a movie about a punk band that kind of gets dicked out of a show, so they go and they play another venue that happens to be run by neo-Nazis. They end up witnessing a murder, and it just gets crazy from there. This is no exaggeration. This is easily the most tense movie I've seen in at least 5 years. Like, me and my girlfriend went to the theater actually to see this, and the entire time my stomach was in knots. I really enjoyed this movie. Number 3 is The Black Coat's Daughter. This movie is also called February in some places, but this was a movie that I'm still surprised no one's talking about. And I saw a couple ratings and they were rather low, and this is exactly why I don't listen to critics, because they very rarely mimic my own feelings about things. But this is a movie about 2 girls who get left behind at a boarding school over winter break, only to realize that there's some sort of like weird entity at the boarding school. And it's a slow burn, but I think that that's the beauty of this movie. There's an immense feeling of dread and terror throughout the whole thing. This dark and creepy and haunted feeling. Like, you constantly feel like something's happening for an hour and a half and you're dying to know exactly what it is. It's not a jump scare movie. The story isn't just handed to you nice and easy on a silver platter. It takes some patience and some thinking, but it's easily one of the better horror films that I've seen in the past few years. Number 2 is The Witch. One of the best horror movies in recent years. And like The Black Coat's Daughter, it's not a jump scare movie. I know that's what's popular nowadays. There's no big scary monster. There's no big villain hiding in the background. This one is another slow burn that's all about pacing and atmosphere. It's a story set in the 1930s in New England, where a family loses its newborn and starts to fall apart, fearing that the newborn may have been taken by a witch. And again, the movie is all about the atmosphere, the scenery, the acting. I'll also say I love this movie right off the bat when I first saw it again in the theater. But what made me really fall in love with this movie is when I got home and I read up about the folklore about the witch that they were describing in the film. This is not some silly witch that's flying through with a broomstick, with a long nose, with a wart. It's not that kind of witch, trust me. It sounds like it could be a corny and cheesy movie, but seriously, check this out. If you semi-enjoyed this movie, I urge you to go and read up on the folklore. I feel like it'll make you like the movie so much more. And I'm sure my number 1 slot is absolutely no surprise to anyone that knows me. But yeah, the number 1 spot for me goes to Rogue One. I know some people are shitting on this movie for reasons that I can't possibly wrap my head around, but I found this movie to be the best Star Wars movie since Return of the Jedi. Yeah, I said that shit. I don't fucking care what you say, man. I think it's much better than The Force Awakens. It felt like we were back in the Star Wars universe again, but we're with a story that, while we're kind of familiar with it because it was mentioned in the other movies, this story seems new and it seems different, and it's just something that I could easily watch over and over and over again. And it actually makes me excited for Episode 8. Or does it make me scared for Episode 8? I don't know. Either way, I loved the shit out of this movie. So that's it. Those are my favorite movies that I saw this year. Again, I didn't see every single movie that came out this year. These are just 10 that I did see that I really enjoyed. So, like I said before, be sure to drop your list in the comment section down there. As usual, thank you for living, thank you for loving, thank you for being you. Please don't die, and I'll see you guys next time. Alright? Peace, bitches!